Welcome back, Cage Nation. It's Kevin Jackowitz with the Cage Review, and I just got done watching It. I didn't get a chance to see it in the theaters because I was just too busy with shit, and so I just saw it, and damn was it good. I'm a huge fan of the horror genre. I have been for years, ever since I was a little kid, and they came out with Halloween and the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And I'm not a fan of just typical slasher movies. I was not a big fan of the Friday the 13th series because there's no point. It's just fucking Jason walking around slashing people up. And it didn't really matter how creative they got with the death scenes. It was just gore porn and sometimes straight porn. I like movies that can be disturbing but still have a good story to them. Story is important to me. If I'm not invested, just like anything else, you don't care. And so I thought they did a great job with that with the original Nightmare on Elm Street. They caught something super creepy. Scream had a good storyline with a lot of plot twists. Saw was another good movie, the original Saw, with a lot of good plot twists in it. And so I haven't seen a really good horror movie in a long time. And I think a long, long time for me. They're not made anymore. Horror movies nowadays are a fucking joke. And so I thought it was really cool that they went back to the original master of horror, Stephen King, and tried to reboot this movie. Stephen King is great at making stories. Doesn't matter what kind of story, the guy has just perfected the craft. And I have read it. Actually, I think I've read it more than once. So I'm very familiar with the story walking into this. And my initial fear was that they were going to fuck it up, because a lot of reboots that they have made have been garbage. Take Nightmare on Elm Street. The original, classic, the remake, absolute shit. So I was apprehensive walking into this. And boy did they deliver the goods with this one. The thing that really got me about it while I was reading it is that it wasn't a scare fest in the typical sense. It made you uneasy. There were scenes that really unsettled you. And that was one of the great things about the book, is that, you know, you're dealing with the lives of these kids called the Losers Club, and why they're losers, the backgrounds of each kid, and how they've had to deal with all these shitty situations in their lives. You know, and adding on the fact that they've got the bullies that fuck with them, which they have, you know, the typical Stephen King bully in the novel and in the movie. So I was really glad to see that one of the first things I took away from this movie as a whole is that they spent a lot of time with two things in particular: the character development of each of these kids, and creating scenes that were highly disturbing and unsettling. And God, is there so many scenes in this movie that you could say are just really unsettling. You know, it starts off with what we all know from the books, or if you've seen the miniseries movie with, I think it was Timothy Curry. And they just nailed it, man. They fucking nailed it. Georgie, you know, he's running around, he's chasing his boat. Well, how does the boat get ahead of him? Well, he smacks his head on one of those barriers. I thought that was really smart. And then comes the scene most people that know anything about it know and love. And that is Georgie meets It in the sewer. So the boat goes down the sewer, then you see the eyes of It. And you pop up, you see the face of Pennywise the clown, and Georgie's talking to Pennywise, and they're having this nice little back and forth. And they did a great job of making it seem likable to a kid. You know, the conversation where it was actually selling how fun it is down there, and it was really cool because it made sense this time. I think with the original miniseries, it was a little too campy. Um, Pennywise for me, I mean, it's good. It was classic, but at times it just came off a little too cartoony. So they sold it great, and then comes the moment where he fucking chomps down on Georgie's arm, and the next thing you see is Georgie, he's in the street, he's missing his arm, there's blood all over, and then it pulls him down into the sewer. That sold me right away. I mean, you're talking probably the first, 10, 15 minutes, and I'm already, okay, this is better than the original miniseries. And I did like the original miniseries. I mean, like I said, it was cartoony, but it's a guilty pleasure. So, the movie really takes off with that, and then you instantly go into character development of the kids. And you have one of the kids, you know, they're trying to get him to kill one of the lambs, and he wouldn't do it, and it kind of goes into this life that he's forced into because the parents aren't there anymore. Really fucked up situation. You're building up, you know, the girl who has the sexually abusive father. You're dealing with the kid who has the overprotective mother. They're doing a great job of establishing why these kids are the way they are. And another thing that I really, really enjoyed about this movie was how they all come together, and you know, how they're all fighting against the bullies, and they're, you know, basically the people that no one else will talk to, so inevitably they find them. And they establish the Losers Club. And then they all start seeing glimpses of it. And the whole premise of the creature itself is that for some reason it feeds off the fear of the kids. And so it manifests itself as something that they think the kids will fear. For one kid, his particular fear is clowns. Another kid, his fear is like he's a germaphobe and shit like that. So they get this like leper looking hobo that's just oozing out of everywhere, and that's his big fear. So I mean, that's kind of the concept, is whatever it actually is manifests itself as the fear that these kids have. And that creates some pretty creepy moments in the movie. But the overall creepiness comes from Pennywise himself. And one of the standout moments for me is they all go to this abandoned house to look for Beverly, who has been kidnapped by it. And one of the kids falls through a floor. He's got asthma. He just broke his arm. So he's laying there. He wakes up. His arm's folded in the wrong direction. And the refrigerator in front of him opens up, and Pennywise crawls out. And he has this really grotesque body contortion thing that he's doing to come back into shape as Pennywise. And it was just really, really great imagery, really disturbing. A couple of the images where it shows, you know, the actual mouthful of teeth coming out, that was kind of disturbing. And I like how a lot of times they'd have Pennywise run towards one of the kids, and they kind of did this like really chaotic visual with his running where it's kind of jerky. That was a really cool selling point too. The disturbing imagery was just great. And you know, I didn't entirely follow the novel, which I didn't expect it to. Most movies don't. They kind of had to add their own things because sometimes translating book to movie isn't exact, and it shouldn't be exact, I think. I think you have to have something new and, you know, something we haven't seen before. But it does hold very close to the books. The book, I should say, because it's a one long ass book. It's like 1,100, 1,200 pages or some shit like that. So I did like the fact that it really did, you know, hold close to the book in a lot of ways. I think the bully himself, I can't remember his name in the movie, but they even did a good job of establishing, okay, he has a super asshole parent. He's a one parent kid whose parent is a cop and he's usually gone, and he's a strict asshole and kind of goes overboard with the abuse, and so it just turns this guy into just a nasty individual right off the bat. And they do some really good moments of just creating this disturbing kid who, you know, like one moment steals his dad's gun and they're shooting pots, and then he asks one of his friends to put a cat up there so he can shoot the cat, and you know, just some really sick, twisted shit like that. Starts carving his name into one of the fat kid's belly. I mean, just, you know, the kids you love to hate in a movie. And, you know, inevitably it comes down to a final showdown with the loser club and it. And they have to go find Beverly, who is, you know, down in the sewer. And I really liked how, because of all the things the girl had to go through with her dad, she's not really afraid of it. And it kind of strips him of his power. And the thing I really liked about it is, okay, it kind of caught on, and the other losers in the Losers Club started to realize this, and especially Georgie's brother, I think it was Billy. You know, he realized that you don't have to be afraid of it, and the less you are, the less power it has over you. And so finally they come to the showdown where they, you know, they kind of gang up and they're all beating the hell out of it, and it's like 7-on-1. And that within itself had some really cool moments visually with Pennywise, because it kind of showed little bits of what he actually looks like, maybe what he actually looks like, when he pulls out these really huge, like, praying mantis style legs, and some of the other visuals there, it's just really, really cool. But eventually it realizes he's stripped of power. They're not afraid of him anymore. The kids in the Losers Club have found their power. And so eventually he shrinks back and lets himself fall into the sewer. I wasn't too sure about, like, all the kids falling down that were... there was a scene where you see a lot of kids floating, hence the "you'll float too" thing, and they're just floating up this drainage pipe, and they're all like the reserves that Pennywise is supposed to feed on while, you know, he's kind of dormant. You know, he has his food supply. So they all start drifting back down to the ground, and so now he doesn't have any food supply and shit like that. Which kind of establishes what's going to happen in the next movie. Well, of course, Pennywise is now pissed, and he wakes up again, and he's coming after the Losers Club now that they're in their 40s. So that kind of sets up the next movie, which they are doing. But just a really fucking cool movie, man. If you haven't seen it yet, go fucking watch it. It's definitely worth a watch. And God, there was so many cool things that they did with the character development. Billy, you know, when he's stuttering, and you know, he starts getting angry and scared and shit like that, but he starts getting determined, and the more determined he gets, the less he stutters. And they even make a comment about it at one point. He says this whole little speech in front of the cabin, and he's not stuttering at all. And so it was really cool to see them develop characters in horror movies again. Like, you finally have a story. And that, to me, is just the best part about this movie. I think it's really cool that they went back, like I said, to Stephen King, the original master of horror. And I really hope they do more with not only the sequel to It, but more Stephen King movies. I know there's supposed to be more in the works. And, like, this is what horror movies should be. You know, and the visuals that they create were amazing. At one point, Beverly, the girl of the Losers Club, had cut off her hair while she's in the bathroom in another segment, and she hears voices, and she's looking down in the sink, and then the hair strands come up, grab her by the face, and there's this huge rush of blood. And visually, that scene was really fucking cool. I mean, I don't know. I'm really, really stoked about the next one. I've always loved Stephen King. I think he's a great writer, so how could you not have a great story for the movie? But I think that they did a great job with the movie itself. I think the style of the movie was very, very cool. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is my thoughts on it. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the review, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. This is Kevin Jackwitz with the KH Nation. KH Nation out.